The gentlemen of 3 Days Grace.
How's it going, man?
How you doing, man?
How's it going, guys?
Great.
Good, man.
A whirlwind week, I imagine, right?
Indeed.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
The album's been out, I guess, 6 days by now. I mean, what has the past week been like for you guys?
Oh, it's been great. I mean, we actually jumped on a bus and we're kind of doing this a little acoustic thing right now.
Okay.
Which is cool. You know, it's not the full rock thing, but we write a lot of our stuff. A lot of this new record was written kind of like that, so it's easy for us to kind of break it down and you know, present the songs in kind of a little quieter environment.
Yeah, I mean, you know, so it's this next question is kind of funny because this record is literally less than a week old. But I heard you guys' acoustic set at a record store out in New Jersey that you did in the past week, and it sounded so good, and it gave like, you know, a different life to the songs that I love on this record. Would you guys ever kind of reimagine a record like that acoustically?
Well, we were just talking about maybe even going out and doing like an acoustic tour.
Yeah.
Almost. Yeah, just breaking down the stuff. It's been so much fun to be like so close to the fans and like, you know, just breaking it down and yeah.
Totally.
People are enjoying it. So
I always love that as a fan too, is like, you know, when a band, they release a great record like you just did, and then they tour that record like properly, like it sounds like the record, and then it gives it a whole new life. You get to catch them like, you know, in the fall or next summer acoustically, and it's just makes you fall in love with the music even more.
We've always had a philosophy, like when we're writing the songs, that if it's a good song, it will translate on just like literally one acoustic guitar and a vocal. So we call it the campfire test.
Yeah.
So even if we're making a demo and like the demo's heavy and it's kind of reflective of what it's going to actually sound like, we still do a version where it's just literally a guitar and a vocal. Listen back to the song. If it's like a compelling song at that level, then whatever you add to it is just going to help it and not cloud cloud a song that's okay.
Yeah, you know what? How long have you guys been doing the campfire test? Because, you know, I mentioned the 13 number ones at Active Rock Radio throughout your career. I mean, the hits go on and on and on throughout your catalog, and it speaks to the timelessness of your music. You know what I mean? I always find myself more impressed with records of longevity like that, as opposed to, you know, records or accolades of flash in the pan moments, you know, what have you.
We all grew up in rural Ontario, outside of Toronto, Ontario, and it's you know, a small town, 1,300 people, and you know, we grew up around the campfire, so we learned first on acoustic. So I think, you know, we've been doing this since the beginning of time, long time ago.
old as dirt.
Yeah, right?
No, but you know, well, the other thing about standing, like the campfire test is, it's really like standing around a fire drinking beer with your buddies,
hanging out,
and passing the guitar around. You know, that's
Totally.
kind of how that's what we did when we were teenagers. That was our thing, you know. So we've kind of just translated that into when we're writing. It needs to kind of cross.
And that way you never get too far from, you know, your roots, who you really are, and just
well, I think some producers and some bands make the mistake of going into the studio and thinking like the more layers of stuff we put on this song, it's going to be bigger and it's going to make it great and grand and stuff. But I think you can kind of get distracted on like if the core of the song needs to be like engaging and compelling, the message needs to be there. It needs to be kind of concise, right?
Yeah, too many layers can get really cloudy from what you're trying to say in the song, and it just messes it up. So we end up actually taking some of the stuff out that we put down.
Well, I'm so actually happy that you just brought that up, the layers, and kind of just making things more confusing than it has to be, because my favorite thing about this record, or one of them I should say, is, you know, within the first 30 seconds of the track number 1 on Outsider, there is absolutely no doubt that this is a rock record. It's that gritty, almost confrontational guitar riff that opens the record, and it's like 3 Days Grace is in control, and we as the listeners are just we're sort of at their will. Whatever ride they're going to take us on is the ride that we're going on. And I think that sort of feeling, that sort of attitude is missing a little bit in modern rock. I feel like, you know, I come from the world of Billboard and the charts, and for commercial success nowadays, it seems like rock has to go to things like, you know, a trap beat or a tropical house influence to kind of, you know, see themselves on the top of, you know, say a Billboard chart. Do you guys ever feel the pressure?
I think, you know what, we've always kind of, we don't feel the pressure, and if we do, I mean, I don't know.
You don't give into it.
We don't give into it, and I think what trumps all of that, what makes all of that?
You can't say that.
Who?
Four-letter word now? Yeah. Four-letter word?
You can't say that anymore.
Don't say that in New York.
Nah, regardless. Honesty in rock and roll is the thing that has to remain. Honesty, danger. It can be rough around the edges. It doesn't need to be like polished clean, you know. And I think that people are always going to go back to rock and roll for that, you know. And especially in a world where like a lot of stuff is like polished, really produced, super like overthought and all that kind of thing. And I think that that's the reason why rock and roll will never die, because people get tired of like something that's so contrived, so thought out, that they go back to rock and roll to feel that kind of raw, unbridled, honest energy.
Yeah, and few bands really bring that raw energy like you guys do. I mean, how do you overall feel about the state of rock right now?
I think it's good, man. You know, you go to these festivals and it's thriving. You know, there's 25,000 people at these festivals, and it's amazing. So I think rock is alive and well, and there's a lot of great new bands coming through, like bands like Nothing More and
Nothing But Thieves, Bring Me the Horizon.
Great guitar bands, you know. And I think that's what we've been missing the last few years is great guitar, riffs.
The guitar's almost gone missing sometimes.
Yeah.
It feels like in popular rock.
So
yeah,
Totally. Yeah, we thought about just. There was a time where we're like, do we even need guitar? Do we need this guy?
no, never.
No, that never happened.
no, I'm glad you guys didn't get rid of that. I want to dive into the some of these tracks. The name of the album is Outsider. Track number 3 on the album is I Am an Outsider. And I was just curious how sort of intrinsic to your own DNA as a Canadian band, coming here to the States, however many years ago you finally did, is that sort of just like something just innate in you? Do you kind of just have that chip on your shoulder as an outsider?
Yeah, certainly. And I think this album, we just were talking so much about, you wake up and you're instantly, I don't know, whether you pick something up and look at it or whatever, there's so many things that are set up to influence you, influence the way that what you believe, what you like, what you don't like, what you buy, what you eat, everything like that. And and you got to wonder like those influence, what are they? What they're set up to like take money from you or just make you believe a certain thing. And sometimes like we were all just talking about that and just wanting to kind of be isolated and take a big step back and be able to look at all of that, the sensory overload, and make some sense of it instead of being like in the middle of it all the time, which will drive you crazy.
Yeah. You guys have a lot of, fans, of course, around the world, a lot of young fans around the world that are going to listen to this record or have listened to this record this past week and probably see themselves or can relate to a sentiment like Outsider, or even the lyrics of the track number 3, I am an outsider, of, I have no interest in the in crowd. How were you guys growing up? I mean, I think that's kind of an important story to tell for any young fans of yours that are listening to this record. Were you guys, like, how did you get to a point in your life, I should ask probably, that you weren't going to give in to, the pressures of fitting in?
I always felt like an outsider when I was in high school. I listened to different music, like heavy music, and like Marilyn Manson and stuff, and I was total goth, and like, like I got made fun of by the jock kids, and like, so I don't know, that song really applies to me because I felt like that, I felt like an outsider.
Did you ever feel pressure to sort of assimilate or to like?
No, I felt like it was okay because I didn't want to be like everybody else. I wanted to be different, and I liked different music, and I liked skateboarding, and I didn't want to play hockey because everybody plays hockey in Canada.
Yeah.
But
What's wrong with hockey?
Yeah, you be careful.
Whoa.
Steady lad.
I like hockey, but instead I skateboarded, and instead of playing sports, I played music. So.
I love you saying that, by the way. The NHL featured artist recently, 3 Days Grace, saying that.
It might just be because you suck at hockey.
I did suck. I actually had to quit because I dislocated my shoulder when I was like 15.
That's the only reason this album was made, is because he dislocated his shoulder.
I was put on skates at 3 and then quit at 15. So
that's hilarious. There's so many themes. If you really sit down with this record and you listen to it, a couple times, you can sort of notice some things going on in this. One of the themes or one of the emotions is this sort of, and it's kind of a theme, I guess, throughout a lot of your music throughout the years, is sort of confrontation. You have a song on here called Me Against You. And music has always been like your really healthy and great sort of outlet for letting go of emotions like that, anger and confrontation. But I'm curious, in you guys personally, where does that need to relinquish that emotion? Where does that come from?
Well, I mean, going back to like what I was saying earlier, like you wake up first thing in the morning and pick up your phone, you read the worst news in the world that day, and then you read a bunch of people's shitty opinions on something else, and and by the time your feet hit the floor as you roll out of bed, you're pissed off at the world. You know what I mean? It's like,
tell me about it.
And also like there's a lot of opinions out here in a world where everyone gets easily offended, which is kind of an oxymoron a little bit. And so I think Me Against You, as an example, is kind of just saying like, hey, if there's a problem, let's figure it out. Let's not like come sit down, look me in the eyes. You'd be surprised once you say, hey, let's look me in the eyes and let's discuss if there's a problem here. You'd be surprised how many people don't want to do that.
Well, not even that, but then you can kind of have that conversation, and we're all so much more alike than we are different, and maybe you didn't even have the confrontation you thought you were having. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Yeah. So it's a cool message on the record. Another cool message on this record is there are inspiring songs on here, which is of course nothing new for 3 Days Grace. One of them being one of the singles off this record, "The Mountain." Very inspirational record. Is that something not that you have an objective when you write music, but is that something you think about wanting to inspire your fans?
Yeah, definitely. Like, The Mountain is about, waking up every day to your own reality. And whether that be like getting over depression or, getting to number one, whatever it is, it's just, getting over that mountain. And the mountain is life.
You got a very cool video for the video, or for the song, I should say, too. You got a UFC fighter in the video. It takes place in like an octagon. Are you guys big combat fans?
I like UFC a lot. Yeah.
Okay. Who are your favorites?
GSP, George St. Pierre's.
Right.
He's a Canadian dude from Quebec.
Holding it down.
Yeah. And Misha Serkinov, he's the 7th light heavyweight in the UFC. So he is in the video. I actually got to hold pads for him and get a few pointers and stuff from him.
Dude, what was that like?
It was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
He wasn't putting his full force into it by any means, because I would have been on the ground.
How did it come about that he was in the video? You guys buddies, or?
No, we
put a feeler
got
out?
a buddy. We got a friend who travels with UFC, and we've just become friends with him and stuff. And we had an idea. We wanted to kind of like Matt said, the mountain is like kind of a metaphor for it, like either striving for the top or just trying to stay off rock bottom or whatever. But we thought like a sports theme where it's like you're against yourself to become the best version of yourself. And so the original idea was boxing. You're like, I've seen a lot of boxing. I've seen a lot of bands in boxing rings, with the microphone coming down. So we're like, let's find an MMA ring. So we started making phone calls, and we called our UFC guy, and he's like, why don't you just go to UFC gym and do it? And we're like, oh, okay, yeah, great.
Totally. Yeah, I can't think of many, if any, that took place in a UFC, octagon, so it's pretty cool. Now, you guys did something a little bit different with this record in terms of where you recorded it. You got out of Toronto proper, with your rehearsal space, and you recorded it on the farm. Talk about the campfire test from before. But what's interesting is, as much as like the setting was something different, you kind of had a reunion of sorts with the production team, that you did 1X with. What was that like, that relationship between sort of like something old and something new?
It's pretty amazing. We had the same rehearsal space in Toronto, downtown Toronto, big city, for 15 years, and we wrote every record there. And we just thought it's time to move on. It's time to look forward and get out of that kind of mainstream vibe. And I think you can actually hear that on the record. There's a lot of seclusion going on there, and we spend hours and hours in the woods, laughing, crying, talking about music, just hanging out. And I think it's a big part of how this record, happened. Yeah.
Was something not going right in the studio? Like, why was that decision made?
No, we were just coming off a tour. So we were in Russia. We did a big tour, Russia, Eastern Europe, that finished in August, and we were all kind of burned out, and we were all kind of like, we had to go home and like make sure we were still friends.
Yeah, yeah.
You just like,
is that every tour though?
Yeah, but try to write a song with someone that is like on your case.
Yeah.
Or vice versa. So we had to we were just in Russia. We already started writing stuff on the bus, and we were just like, man, when we get home, does anyone want to drive into downtown Toronto every day and be inspired, or no? So that's when we were just like, no, let's like be isolated. Let's go into the woods and hang out, ride some four-wheelers, ride some snowmobiles, drink some beers.
Yeah, we're all country boys at heart too. Like, we grew up in the sticks, so
yeah.
Out there, that's our place, and we
happy
can
Friday nights and tailgates.
Tailgates, happy place.
Friday nights, tailgates.
Is that a song?
Cold bottled beer.
There you go.
Every time I say country boys, people think like country music. But,
yeah.
Myself.
We're gonna start rumors now that 3 Days
Yeah.
Grace is going country.
That's right. I'm a country
Be a twang
boy.
on the next record. Toronto overall, I wanted to ask you guys about the city of Toronto because it's such a fascinating town and community to me. And in my opinion, I wanted to get yours, but I don't think it gets the credit it deserves for the diversity of the artists that come out of there. You know, it's popular nowadays because of artists like The Weeknd in the world of hip hop, and Drake, of course. But like, you know, the Strumbellas are a great band out of Toronto.
Rush.
Yeah. I mean, like the list goes on though.
Strumbellas, they're from Lindsay.
Yeah, they're from
right?
like around where we're at. Yeah.
That's like 40 minutes from our small town. So Lindsay.
No way.
Like, our parents are from Lindsay.
Dude, that's hilarious.
Yeah.
I had no idea.
You know what? I think we've always said this, but I think a part of it, of like, you know, there are a lot of artists coming out of Canada, because Canada's so huge and spread out between major centers that if you're, especially with a band, by the time, if you're going to do it, if you've decided you're going to do it for real, we're going to go across Canada and try to make it. You've driven across a massive country in a van with no heat, with a bunch of dudes, and you kind of like pay your dues that way, right? And so if you actually can handle that, by the time you actually wrote some great music that starts becoming popular, you've kind of already done the van thing. So if you were gonna kill each other, you already would have by now.
Exactly. Everyone survived. Yeah. We're good to go. We were talking on this stage too with a artist, and I'm forgetting the name is escaping, but they're from Atlanta, Georgia. And Atlanta, of course, is a city known for sort of the diversity of artistry out of there, the eclecticness of sound. And what they were attributing that to for that city is just like there's this freedom. There's no one sound that the city is married to. You know, in New York, whether it's rock or whether it's hip hop, like there is this idea of like a New York sound that I think holds some artists back. Do you think that as people from Toronto or band, from the greater Toronto area, do you have that freedom? Like there isn't one Toronto sound. I think that can kind of lend to artistry.
Yeah, and even like we kind of don't, we're connected to Toronto because it's the closest big city. But when we were like starting out, we were just. I think it was literally like the feeling of getting on stage. We're like, whatever it takes, we need to get on that stage as much as possible. And we never really thought about like, I guess maybe like if you're an artist in New York, you might be overwhelmed at how many other artists are trying to make it, and like you might feel like you're like a small fish in a big sea, right? And I don't know, we just never really like that didn't get to us or anything, so we just kind of like kept going on our path.
Razor focus.
Yeah. I don't believe in happy accidents, but hard work can work. It can pay off if you just keep at it.
Yeah, it certainly has. I heard you guys recently say in an interview for this record how hard it is when you're making any body work to sort of remove the proverbial brush from canvas, and I thought that was a really great way of putting it. I'm curious though, like that dynamic in the band, is there somebody that always wants to kind of remove it first, or somebody that really wants to leave it on there?
Who's out first?
Yeah. Depends on what time of night it is. If it's 3 a.m, the song, it's fine.
Yeah.
Just leave it.
What do we call it? The 11 o'clock.
Rewrite.
The 11 o'clock rewrite.
Yeah, we'll write something every day, and then like a couple beers or whatever, and then you can take a break, go have dinner, you come back, and it always tends to be 11 o'clock at night where someone's like, it's just not right.
Yeah, one thing. Exactly.
No, but we're lucky to be a team. We check our egos at the door. If I come in with an idea that sucks, and he tells me it sucks, I don't take that as he hates me.
Right.
It's just so we trust each other creatively, and that ends up makes the records better, because it's when everybody is like excited, like that is awesome, then we know it's finished. And until that time, if one person's going like, I don't know, then we immediately go back to the drawing board no matter what.
Yeah, that's cool. That communication is obviously so key. Invariably, though, you've made so many albums, so many records, so many hits, as we talked about. There must be a 3 Days Grace song that, as artists, you wish, in a perfect world, you could go back and maybe put the brush back on the canvas. Is there one that jumps out, maybe one we would know, that we know and love, but even you guys, being so close to these songs?
Where there's mistakes and stuff in it?
There's one for me, and it's not. So Matt helped write some of the first record, and Scared. It wasn't your part that you helped write. He helped write a song called Scared, but at the bridge in that song, every time I hear the bridge,
I can't even remember the bridge.
It was 15 years ago.
This guy's like a Rolodex. He remembers. I can't.
But yeah, sure. There's parts. There's always like that little thing, like, oh, I wish I would have done that, or and it's too late. You just got to live with it.
How does it go? Can you sing it for us?
Do you have any bass?
Putting him
Do you
on
have
the
a bass?
spot.
Bass,
I can play the part for you.
No. I'm gonna listen to it. I'll see. So it sucks. Is that what
It kind of sucks.
Really?
No, it doesn't suck. No, but there's always something. Yeah, it's just how it goes, man.
Well, you guys got a busy year ahead. You're doing a couple of radio shows, it seems like, in the spring, and then you're really hitting the road with Prophets of Rage this summer and Avenged Sevenfold. That's going to be, just wild. You guys looking forward to that?
Yeah, man, it's going to be awesome. We're big Rage Against the Machine fans, so it'll be awesome to see the Prophets of Rage, and we love Cypress Hill, too.
Totally. Have you guys ever been on tour with either of those acts?
Well, not the Rage guys.
Yeah.
Or Cypress or Public Enemy. We grew up on it. But we're good friends with Avenged Sevenfold. We've been out with them on a number of tours. They're a great band. Like they're just great players, great guys, great team, and the tour's a little left of center. It's not like it's an interesting lineup that I think will bring like a diversity of different fans, which is cool. It's kind of like a festival, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly. I'm glad you said that. That's exactly what I thought when I saw the lineup. I was like, this is kind of something for everybody. You know, there is a common thread there between rock and kind of like whatever, but and it'll be so fun. I saw you guys running like amphitheaters and stuff. Like you're at PNC in New Jersey this summer, so it'll be a good time for sure. Do we know when tickets are available? Are they already available?
They're out now.
They're out now. All right, cool. So you can check out like 3 Days Grace on social and
Totally.
whatnot.
Go get your tickets.
It's so funny. Back in the day, you had to like direct people to a store or like a box office, like literally everywhere. Just go anywhere.
World, just text me in a bit.
Yeah, exactly.
And I'll figure it out for you.
Well, we do have time for some studio audience questions as we end our chat here today. So let's find out where the first one's coming from right here.
Hey guys, I was very curious about the creative process on the new album, especially that you had both Gavin Brown and Howard Benson and yourself working as producers. So how did that entire process unfold?
Well, we often talked about the notion of how cool would it be to have Gavin Brown, who produced our first album, and Howard Benson, who produced 1X, as well as Life Starts Now. We were just always talking about, like, how cool would it be to put those two guys together and just see what happens, and then have Chris Lord-Alge mix it, who's just the great rock mixer and a good friend of ours. So we were able to make that happen. Gavin came in early. He's the kind of guy that can really, like, he was kind of hanging out with us when we were, like, broing out in the country. You know, half of the creative process is just like the hanging out, having conversations. All of a sudden, someone says something. You're like, "What'd you just say? No, not that. What'd you say before that? Man, that'd make a great song title. Let's talk about that." And Gavin kind of enables that. He's kind of like, you know, one of us or whatever. He's always been that way for us. And then, you know, Howard Benson. I mean,
Yeah, and Howard's a great vocal producer. Like he's classically trained in piano, so he can find all the harmonies that are just the sweet spots. So then he'd just play it in with the organ, and then I'd sing along to it, and then he'd take it away, and I'd sing the harmony. He's just a genius when it comes to that. So the vocal production is definitely Howard.
That's awesome. We have time for 2 more questions. Where's the next one coming from? Over here.
Hi, guys. Thank you for the record store thing the other day. It was a real treat. My question is for Matt. When the lead singer that originally worked with you guys left the band and you took over, I was just wondering, did your brother like call you on the phone? Did you say, I want to do it? How was that process?
We were actually having sushi together in our hometown, Peterborough, pretty much. And we're having sushi together, and he found out, and he's like, well, you better get in your singing shoes on, get practicing these songs. And, you know, I was a little freaked out at first, but I got in my basement, and it was kind of weird because my old band was actually living in the house, so they were...
Those aren't our songs.
Like, what the hell's going on?
But you know, they're my buddies, and they were totally supportive, and my parents were supportive of me, and you know, I was just I had a goal, and I did it.
Great question, by the way, too. Last and final studio audience question from the back over here.
Hey guys, thanks for being a part of the Build series. So my question is, who has been one of your favorite acts to have been on a bill with?
oh man, we were just talking about this yesterday, but it was one of the defining moments, I think, in our career when we got the call to open up for the Rolling Stones. We did 2 shows in Saskatchewan opening for the Stones. The stage was the size of a small city. It was insane. We had 2 shows with 1 day off. Well, the crew decided, like the Stones crew, which is like 200 people, decided to throw a party on the day off, right? And they invited us to it. And you know, we were opening for the Stones, so some of the guys' moms were out and aunts and uncles and stuff, right? So we got invited to this party with our moms. And sure enough, you know, Mick Jagger, they all roll in, and we're just having this party, and Mick and the band comes right up to us, straight up to us. Great set last night. What a beautiful night, full moon, it was amazing. Can't wait till tomorrow to do it again. And like, I just remember some of the moms just going like, you guys have really done something here, boys. And then, but they were the most grounded, down to earth. They watched our show. They knew, they knew our name. It was just, and from that moment on, I mean, even before, we've always been like this. But what a inspirational. If the Stones can like be grounded individuals, that anyone in music who's a dick is really a dick, because the Stones are so cool.
Dude, is that the most surreal moment of your career? I mean, that's crazy.
Definitely one of them. Trying to think of another. For me, I'm a huge hockey fan, and we were in Vegas, first Billboard Awards, I think, that we went to, first award show, walking down Sunset Strip, and this guy's 3 Days Grace yelling at us, and it's Wayne Gretzky.
No.
And we're like, we turn around, and we're like, what the hell? Like, we basically, freaked
You've
out.
made it.
And he wanted a picture, and we're just like, holy shit,
Great one.
Sure, great one. I guess so.
Yeah.
Yeah, right?
It was amazing.
We got a few minutes.
Yeah, that's definitely one for me.
That's crazy, guys. Well, thank you so much. We're unfortunately out of time, but we really appreciate you stopping by Build. The new record, again, Outside, are available everywhere, and Tour is going to be here before you know it, so be sure to grab tickets wherever they are available. Thanks for watching.
Thanks, guys.